All right, first of all, let's caveat this video by saying I don't actually particularly like discussing some of these headlines, but I think it's also necessary in this time to talk about what other people are hearing and critically evaluate it, right? And I think it's probably worth taking a look at the headlines that are coming out of Bayern Space. I'm just going to type that in. Space. There you go. This evening / yesterday evening, 3 hours ago from midnight on the... Okay, so basically at 9 p.m. on Monday night, Bayern Space tweets this. And I'm going to read it out. I want you guys to... I can now reveal that Bayern Munich has been informed through long-standing communication channels that Volker Struth of Sports 360, the agent of Julian Nagelsmann, that there have been contacts between Struth and Liverpool sporting director Richard Hughes regarding the future and availability of Nagelsmann. Bayern remain close to Struth due to Nagelsmann's ongoing connections to the club, and because several influential board members still operate within the same advisory network that handled this original appointment. Through his chain, Bayern were made aware that Liverpool reached out in recent days for exploratory talks. The exchange was described as loose and precautionary, aimed only at understanding Nagelsmann's long-term intentions should the situation under Arne Slot worsen. Richard Hughes was assured that Nagelsmann will not leave the national team, right, which seems fair enough, will not leave the national team before the World Cup under any circumstances. However, depending on Germany's performance, an early exit from his contract which runs until 2028, is viewed as possible for clubs of Liverpool's historical stature. All right, let's just chill our beans a little bit there. Bayern were informed of these nuances because they maintain regular contact with DFB leadership and with Struth, and because Nagelsmann's long-term trajectory inevitably influences their own strategic considerations. Inside Bayern, one detail was circulated more quietly, that Jurgen Klopp is believed to have been guiding Liverpool towards securing Nagelsmann, helping shape the succession plan that could unfold after the World Cup. In return, it is whispered that Klopp would be considered the national successor to Nagelsmann at the national team. Natural successor. Completing a chain that multiple senior figures inside German football have long envisioned. Same thing. A lot to pick out here. First of all, the chain of secret command at Liverpool would not be thrilled about people hearing this. First of all, because the whole point that I started off with the top of the video of, I don't like disrespecting managers, mostly our own. I could almost care a little bit less if, certain other managers feel uncomfortable in their position, but still as a human-to-human situation, you don't want people to feel uncomfortable, and, there's a respectful element. I think Slot has constantly operated with a level of dignity and class while he's been at Liverpool that I think a lot of other people in this run probably would have abandoned a few games ago. And I think that's probably down to the fact that he feels reassured relatively by the management structure that Liverpool currently have, and that they bear some of the responsibility for this. They bear some of the responsibility for not securing a centre-back, for not securing a ball-playing player that can play from deep, whilst Arsenal have gone out there and performed multiple different transfers, not only getting backup centre-backs, but also bringing in Zubimendi and working out their ball progression, pushing Rice further down the field, and, kind of restructuring there, whilst also realising that some of those transfers really dragged on over the summer, and arguably, this is not the end of the plan for Liverpool. So a lot of the fair crack of the whip style ideas that surround Liverpool at the moment are still evolving, because I don't think that Slot has had a fair crack of the whip this season. Yes, we should be playing better than we are right now, and yes, maybe there should be a system that is lined up. But if there is not the technical proficiency, which there probably is, but if there's not the long-term technical proficiency to enact a lot of what Slot wants, and he doesn't feel that some of those players are invested, or that some of those players have got other ideas, or there's a lack of motivation or whatever, because apparently Slot was relatively angry about some of the stuff that was going on the pitch against Nottingham Forest, then I would say that feels unfair. And even then, as a Liverpool fan, regardless of who it is, outside of Roy Hodgson, I think it feels disrespectful to speak about other managers. But there are headlines out there that I think give the information. And the reason I'm kind of valuing this is Bayern Space was really insightful and really, I think insightful is the word, but also really handy during the summer around the transfer of Florian Wirtz and what they'd heard in Germany, what German sources were saying, all these kind of things. And that, I think over the summer we learned there are more sources and there are more kind of breaking areas. Now, you know, we can go to now multiple different people to kind of see, you know, a bit more than just Ornstein, Sky Sports, and Fabrizio Romano, even though all those guys still remain very good sources. I also think that on the other hand, you have to remember some of the motivations that everyone else has. First of all, floating in inverted commas sexy names onto the market as Liverpool are struggling and maybe reigniting some of your, you know, this is a long-term burn here. This goes well beyond the World Cup. Is in Bayern's space, but also just Bayern's interest, right? Bayern want to dislodge, cause discomfort, you know, make it a little bit uncomfortable for other people in the football space. Hey, a German guy's been linked. Liverpool look weak, or Liverpool look like they're tripping, floundering, whatever you want to call it. Let's double down on that. You know, from a German source, there's a lot of Germans still at the club. Florian Wirtz has just come in. But outside of that, some of this also makes sense. It would also make sense that after this bad run that Slot has been on, Liverpool are looking at what options they have, but it doesn't ever sound good or look good for the club that they're doing that. It's also a very different option to where Slot is. But the real question, I think, for a lot of people was, who was available in the summer? Was Slot the guy that was available? Or was it that was there a lack of availability of other people, and Slot was seen as someone who could be a 3 to 5 year manager, even though Liverpool have been looking at ringing up his contract and all those kind of things, because he does play an attractive brand of football. He does play a brand of football that Liverpool like, and he does play a very predictable kind of, you know, readable brand of football that fans can get behind and support. Not that other people can do that, but you get my point, right? Yeah, my point is, it's a brand of football you can take forward, and the principles work in not any shape, but the shape that Liverpool want to move into. And I don't think we're there yet. Hence why he's not had a fair crack at the whip. And so with that, how fair would it be to bring Nagelsmann into all of this? Well, first of all, Liverpool are showing that new level of disconnection, maybe a kind of coldness that we've experienced that with Edwards before. We've never really had that with Hughes. You know, a lot of people are very invested in Hughes and the overall story with Hughes and him kind of upgrading the club or kind of taking us into a different sphere or operating in a different way, whatever you want to call it. But Nagelsmann would be very different. He'd be a very, as I say, sexy option. And there are other headlines that are broken, last night about Alonso, people talking about Fabregas and the want for him, some people, by the way, having conversations about like, hey, what would Ancelotti do? Not really caring about the Everton connection there. Those are 4 amazing names that I think Liverpool fans globally will be really happy with. But as a Liverpool fan, where I'm, from my perspective, not speaking for everyone, speaking for me, I want to see Slot given the time to resolve this. And maybe I'm assuming one thing here, or maybe I'm kind of operating on the premise that if this is true, then things come good, that Slot can handle this level of pressure. Because the guys, those names that we have in that, I think Ancelotti is the only one there who's really proven that he can handle a level of pressure, turn things around. By the way, if a new manager came in, obviously it wouldn't be about turning things around. It would actually be just about implementing your ideas and possibly just bringing in this new fresh approach, be given the rest of the season, blah, blah, blah. I don't see any of these guys leaving mid-season though. Nagelsmann's not going to leave until after the World Cup. Cesca's not going to leave Como. Ancelotti, obviously he's got his other options now. And then obviously the final option is Alonso, who, things are up in the air at the moment, but I think Alonso is leveraging the other way and basically saying, hey, look, you want me to go? Okay, well, I've got other options, so I'll be very comfortable doing that. It makes other people feel uncomfortable. I think Liverpool's poor situation is actually currently being used to leverage a few things. Hey, maybe Nagelsmann should re-sign at Germany. He's only got a contract that runs till 2028. Hey, Klopp's helping him push that, blah, blah, blah. On the other hand, maybe Jurgen Klopp is also a ruthless operator. Maybe Jurgen Klopp is also someone who says, there are plenty of options out here. I know that you guys weren't happy or you wanted some of these other big names. Those other big names are available. Why don't I just push them in your direction? That would also be a very big one. I also think that then Nagelsmann's a very big name manager. He's burned very brightly in a couple of areas, but the football will be extremely exciting. The football will be extremely tempting to a lot of big players. Not only that, but Nagelsmann has maximised some people in the national team, like, say, Florian Wirtz. Maybe it would mean that we would change a couple of those players that we brought in, or maybe it would mean we'd, kind of have to squish a few people around. Salah would still leave. Konate would still leave. Those fullbacks would be very exciting. Would Frimpong and Kirkes fit that? Would Nagelsmann change the shape that someone like Richard Hughes wants? Does Richard Hughes want to have a manager like Nagelsmann or any of these guys on that list? Especially if we're looking at Cesc at Como, who seems to have been a very hands-on coach, or if we're looking at Alonso at Real Madrid or Alonso at Bayern, does he have the experience of turning things around like a big tanker like this? No, not really. He's only ever been at Real Madrid, where at the moment it's not going particularly well, and then at Bayern, where arguably everything was kind of going his way and he was there to upset the apple cart. Liverpool are no longer there to upset the apple cart. We are now part of the apple cart. And finally, obviously, I mentioned Ancelotti, but I don't really think he's part of that list. So that's a more pragmatic manager. And arguably the managers that are available and would take that it seems so stupid to say it, but like a Glasner type player figure or an Iraola type figure who's nothing like Ancelotti, but they would be a bit more pragmatic is what I'm saying, and possibly have worked under other people who've asked them to be a bit more pragmatic or have worked with some of the tools that they've had in the past. But that's not to say that either of those guys will be able to perform and win a league in the way that Liverpool need them to at the very top level. Glasner almost feels like a kind of Gerard Houllier type appointment, just given his kind of status, although Houllier was probably much. Yeah, Houlier's status was very high when he came in at Liverpool. He was very well received. And then I think we're looking at like Cesc, who's a young, promising manager. Maybe there is something there. All of that is to say, all of these are pie in the sky, big names that don't really suit the recent image of Liverpool. But possibly, again, we're looking to change that idea of what Liverpool is. It's no longer that Klopp thing. We are still believers, but we're not looking for our next Klopp. We're not looking for our next Messiah. We're looking to break away from that Messiah idea and take Liverpool into the next era. We aren't, but the management might be. Get a repeatable system in there. Nagelsmann, of course, would get an incredibly exciting brand of football at Liverpool. A cool, Pep Guardiola-esque, challenging, hey, Arteta, you're the man. No, I'm the man now. Pep, you're the man. No, we're the... There would be a swagger to Liverpool that I think Liverpool fans particularly enjoy and do enjoy challenging people with. But at the same time, I like Arne Slot. And I think there is, at the moment, if you're offered big, sexy names, of course there is a big moment where you go, ooh, we did like Alonso in the summer, but he wasn't available. He turned us down for Real Madrid. We would have liked Nagelsmann, but he turned us down because he had a good job already. We didn't know that Cesc was this. We didn't know that maybe this guy was available. Those are the two big names right now, and I imagine there will be other big names that will break in the next 24, 48 hours in order to undermine Liverpool's confidence, in order to undermine what it is that we're trying to enact at the moment. But actually, what I think this shows is, first of all, we can get connected with big names that didn't seem all that unreasonable because of look at the summer we've just had. But secondly, that actually none of these have come from a space that seems close to Liverpool. The Alonso thing is from a Madrid side of, hey, chill out here. If this guy goes, we're in a bad shape. And the same for Nagelsmann, where it's like, hey, well, maybe pre-World Cup, I want a little reassurance. Maybe I am looking at my other options. Maybe, again, the agent's been mentioned and these kind of things. People want you to know that the agent put this out there. Nagelsmann, we did our job. Liverpool are currently being used as that, well, they've got the analytics, they brought in the great people and the players and they've got all the big system. You should act before they act because they're smart, so you should be smart. That's what it feels like a little bit more to me. But having said all that, that won't stop the excitement, that wouldn't stop the ideas, that wouldn't stop people going, well, is Slot really a sexy appointment? Is he boring? Is he big enough? Are any of the names that I just listed, apart from Carlo Ancelotti, big enough to manage big players like that? I've not seen Alonso managing big egos on that international level and succeeding in that way at Real Madrid. I've not seen any of these other guys doing the same, apart from Ancelotti, but obviously Ancelotti is not actually on that list in the first place, as I said. So, yes, Nagelsmann's managed Wirtz, got the best out of him, got a good tune out of him, right? Yes, he's managed other people and made a very attacking brand of football. Yes, he's managed big names, been very brightly managing some of those big names, but he managed big names. He possibly fits some of the inside track of the club as well, as would Alonso. Alonso gets the DNA, he's met the tea ladies. But again, it's not to say that Slot also has not done the same, and that Slot also isn't now ingratiating himself further with the club. And also, people are talking about, hey, well, he won the league, so he's got money in the bank. The league is not the thing that's the money in the bank here, guys. It's the day-to-day practices, it's the day-to-day learnings, the day-to-day ideas that surround the club with Slot that Hughes, Edwards, players are going to like. And the players that are leaving are possibly not invested in that. But also there are more individual issues that are very rarely going to be solved by bringing in Nagelsmann, Alonso, any of these kind of guys. And there are a lot more individual issues that are solved through transfer connections, through rotating this team, through whatever it is, that I think answer much more of the big questions for Liverpool rather than delaying the inevitable. Some people saying, well, you know, Klopp would be amazing as an interim manager if we got rid of Slot. Nagelsmann comes in next season, by the way, without having had a very long time to prepare for this Liverpool role, because we'll have a World Cup and then we'll have all this other stuff. So that wouldn't be a great summer, but maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe he's just a coach. And Slot respectfully steps aside and said, I've had a great couple of years at Liverpool, blah, blah, blah. I won a league, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go and get another job, blah, blah, blah. I think that sounds disrespectful to me. And maybe some of you will be angry with me for even floating this video, but I think when the headlines are out there, it's worth discussing. It's worth saying what I think. I think it's disrespectful at the moment. And I also think it's kind of in poor taste because Slot is dealing with a lot of the club at the moment. I don't think there's anything to indicate that any of these other managers would do a better job of dealing with that. I think there are other big names. Some people talking about Zidane. Zidane would go to Real Madrid if Alonso left there. You know, Nagelsmann, big name, but come on, he's not available. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know what you think the logic is here behind some people beginning to leak some of these big names. I think it's more for headlines and clicks, and these are kind of long-term people they can associate. They know that a Real Madrid saga with Vinicius is going to rumble on for a couple of weeks. Good clicks. They know that Nagelsmann, he's not going to have much to say between now and kind of the next friendlies in March for Germany. There's all these kind of things. There are very political moves going on here. So none of these guys are immediately available. None of these guys should be immediately available because they aren't. And I'm just interested in what you guys think. Let me know in the free Discord down there. Of course, there's membership on this channel. Of course, there is a Patreon right there. Go and take a look at all of those things down below. We get a better share on the Patreon, so go and take a look at that. And I thank you just for watching in the first place. I appreciate you guys. Let me know what you're talking about in the comments, in your own groups, all those kind of things. And I will chat to you guys in a little while. Much love.